So listen to this. Spain is one win away from a second World Cup title, and instead of talking about how they got there, half of France is convinced the whole run got a helping hand from the officials. Let's go through exactly what happened, because once you lay it out in order, you'll understand why this isn't dying down. Tuesday night, Arlington, the first semifinal, Spain against France, a rematch of that Nations League final not too long ago, except this time, there's an actual World Cup final on the line. 22nd minute, Spain wins a penalty. The referee, Ivan Barton, points to the spot. VAR gets called to check it, standard procedure now for any penalty award, and the review comes back with nothing. No overturn. The call stands exactly as given on the pitch. Mikel Oyarzabal steps up, scores it, and Spain never really looks back from there. Final score, 2-0. Spain into the final. France has been cast in the villain role of every recap article written since. Now here's the part that's actually driving the anger. That penalty wasn't some clean, obvious, his whole leg's taken out situation. It was subjective. The exact kind of call where the referee's read of contact and intent is basically the final word. And VAR is only supposed to step in when something's a clear and obvious error, not just a difference of opinion. So when the review came back and left it alone, French fans didn't hear, the officials double-checked and confirmed it was correct. They heard, the officials looked at a coin flip and decided it wasn't worth their time to flip it back. Deschamps didn't hold back after the game either, aiming his frustration less at VAR as a system and more at the standard the referee was working off in the first place, which, if you're being honest, is actually the more damning version of this complaint. It's one thing to say the technology failed you. It's another thing to say the man in charge of the whistle was making up his own rulebook all night. And then there's the goal nobody's talking about, which honestly tells you everything about how this tournament's been refereed. Yamal put the ball in the net that same night, and it got ruled out for offside, a genuinely tight, genuinely automated call, the kind of decision the semi-automated system exists specifically to get right, and it barely got a mention anywhere. No outrage, no controversy, nothing. Why? Because when the machine makes the call, everyone shrugs and accepts it. It's only when a human being has to use judgment that an entire country decides the whole system is rigged against them. This isn't happening in a vacuum either. This has been the story of the whole knockout stage. FIFA already had to quietly shift its VAR staffing setup ahead of the quarterfinals, moving officials physically into the stadiums as a backup in case anything went wrong with the video hub out in Dallas, a direct response to how loud the complaints had already gotten by that point in the tournament. And Pierluigi Collina, FIFA's own head of refereeing, has already had to publicly shut down growing bias allegations, going as far as to say nobody influences these decisions and that unfounded claims like that have no place in the sport. When the guy running your entire officiating department has to go on record defending the integrity of his own referees mid-tournament, that tells you the noise around this has already gotten louder than FIFA's comfortable with, whether or not the actual calls were correct. And to be clear, on the pure letter of the law, the officials might genuinely have gotten this one right. That's what makes it so combustible. This isn't a story about a blown call. It's a story about a correct by-the-book decision that still manages to leave an entire nation convinced they got cheated out of a World Cup final. Because the standard being applied felt like it moved depending on who was appealing to it. That gap between technically defensible and actually trusted is exactly where every VAR controversy in football lives, and this tournament has been living in it since the round of 16. So now Spain sit in the final, one win from lifting the trophy, and they're doing it with an asterisk hanging over their semifinal that they didn't ask for and, by every account, didn't need. Oyarzabal's goal wasn't even the only meaningful thing that happened in that game, but it's the only thing anyone in France wants to talk about. And with England and Argentina playing today to decide who Spain actually faces in the final, whichever one of those teams shows up to MetLife Stadium is walking into a tournament where the officiating itself has become as big a storyline as the football. I'll be back the moment we know who Spain's final opponent actually is, because after this week, you can bet every single decision in that game is going to be under a microscope before it even kicks off.